Hello everyone, my name is Mauricio Mendoza and welcome to the Jus As Pilot YouTube channel. This time, we're gonna talk about what are the traits that a good airline captain must have. And you know, what's great about this topic is that it not only applies to pilots, but to anyone who plans to become a leader one day. And the best part about this is that we brought someone who has all the experience in the world to talk about this topic. He has about 40 years of flying experience. He's a captain for Virgin Atlantic and he flies the A350 around the world. His name is Christopher, but he's known on social media as Captain Chris. I know the video might be a little long, but trust me, bear with us because it's totally worth the time. So to not make this any longer, let's just jump right to it.
Welcome everyone to our Jus As Pilot YouTube channel. Today we have Captain Chris with us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Okay, great. So my first question is going to be, what steps did you take to become an airline captain?
Okay, becoming an airline captain is the end result of many, many years of hard work. Like much of yourself or the people watching this, I didn't become an airline captain. It was a process of starting to fly an aircraft and then working my way through the industry. So I probably the most important thing, I first started learning to fly in a place called Cessnock, New South Wales in 1982. It was an integrated course like many of you are probably doing these days, where I first flew an Airbus. I first flew a Piper PA-28, again, the same aircraft is still flying today. And I did my initial training, my going solo, and then navigational exercises, and then an instrument rating, multi-engine rating. And I think I did most of it within 9 months, although the instrument rating and multi-engine rating were later on. But in the first 9 months, I got qualified to be a commercial pilot. But when I was an 18, coming on 19-year-old commercial pilot, nobody wanted to fly with that guy. He just looked too young. So finding the first job is sometimes the hardest thing. The actual license wasn't that difficult. It was finding those first jobs. So I did anything that was available to me. I did target towing for the Navy with live targets. I used to fly beach and bay reports. I used to do a radio report on the radio every 30 minutes at 3AW in Melbourne, and how I developed my radio voice. I also flew charter flying. I flew night freight. An interesting job, I flew for a funeral directors, repatriating bodies, dead people throughout Australia in a Beechcraft Baron, but that was good twin hours. And I've done it all. I've done everything you can do in a light aircraft. Yeah, like I said, the night freight, instructing, instrument rating training. And I did that for many years to gain my first 2,500 hours. The airliners in Australia, because there was a glut of pilots in the early 80s, wouldn't even interview you unless you had 3,000 hours. So I felt very fortunate to get an interview with Ansett Airlines when I was at 2,500 hours. And it was because I was on TV. I was doing TV ads for a company that we had called Boomerang Flight Center. And I was quite well known on TV for that. And I got an interview, and I got interviewed with the only 3 airlines in Australia. They were Ansett Australia, Trans-Australian Airways or TAA, and Qantas. I chose the Ansett job over the Qantas job because the Ansett job meant that I would be flying straight away. And again, they were buying this brand new aircraft called the Airbus A320, whereas Qantas at that time was possibly 7 to 10 years as a second officer before I'd even get my hands on the controls. And when you're an 18, 19-year-old, sorry, I was about 22 then, the thought of spending the next 7 or 8 years to even get my hands on the controls, I thought, no, I don't want to do that. And also, I wasn't really that interested in long haul at that stage. I wanted to do short haul. So I stuck with Ansett Airlines, flew the F-27 first while I was waiting for the 320. And then I flew the Airbus A320 in 1989. However, that same year, there was a terrible industrial dispute within the airlines. And at that stage, I left the country, and I thought I'd be back in 6 months, and I haven't been back to Australia since. That was in 1989. So my career has taken me around the world.
Wow.
I can see that. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
And how did you end up in Virgin Atlantic?
Okay, so that's the next stage. So like I said, I left Australia in 1989, arrived in the UK at the end of 89, start of 1990, and I had an Australian airline pilot's license and about 5,500 flying hours at this stage. However, to work in Europe, I needed a European license. At that stage, it was a UK license. It wasn't the EASA license. So I needed to qualify for the UK CAA license. To that, I had to basically do all my ATPL exams again. There were 7 of them. That took a bit of time. Again, we didn't have the internet then, so it was a matter of buying books, reading those books, and studying those books. And while I was studying, I was working as an aircraft cleaner airside at Gatwick Airport because I wanted to get to know the airport. I didn't know the UK aviation industry. And I found that working airside as an aircraft cleaner, I got to know the different airlines. I got to know even the chief pilots of some of these airlines as an aircraft cleaner. And they knew my journey and they knew that I would be qualified one day. And once I was qualified, it only took 6 months to do the exams. I had a fortuitous day of cleaning an airplane on a horrible winter's day. And I slipped over, and the chief pilot of one of the airlines, Air Europe, noticed me, and he said, "Oh, help that man up," to his first officer. And the first officer said, "What, that cleaner?" And the chief pilot said to him, "No, that's a real pilot." Wow. The next, in front of the other first officer, he offered me an interview the following day. I had the interview and I passed. And within a week, I was in Amsterdam training to fly on the Fokker 100 for Air Europe. 6 months later, Air Europe went bust, as many airlines do over these years. From there, I went to KLM on a 6-month contract through Park Aviation, flying the Fokker 100. I then briefly went through to Swiss Air, flying the Fokker 100 once again, before I picked up a job with Eurocipria in Cyprus, part of Cyprus Airways. And I was based in Larnaca for 2.5 years, flying an Airbus A320 to 36 different destinations all over Europe. That job came to an end just as I picked up another contract with Air Lanka in Sri Lanka. That was an interesting, I could fill a chapter in a book on flying for Air Lanka. That was really, really interesting flying an A320 for them, based in Colombo, or Katunayake Airport in Colombo. And while I was out in Sri Lanka, I read in Flight International magazine, again, pre-internet, that they were buying an aircraft called the Airbus A340. It was a brand new 4-engine airliner in 1993. I applied to Virgin. I had an interview on the Thursday. The following Monday, I was in Miami doing the course on that aircraft, and that was 27 years ago. Wow. So yeah, it's and I've been very fortunate to be in Virgin Atlantic for that 27 years. And again, that's why I'm able to speak to people like yourself to say, look, I've been very lucky in aviation. I was unlucky up to Virgin Atlantic, and I've weathered quite a few storms. You know, while I've been in Virgin Atlantic, I've been through 2 Gulf Wars. We've had September the 11th. We've had volcanic ash, we've had the downturn, and now we've got coronavirus. And I've been fortunate enough to be in a position to survive all those, but I'm now in that position to then give the advice to people who are starting off in a career who are probably a bit concerned about what's going to happen and where it's going.
Right. It's so important to keep the motivation and to be able to tell your perspective and stories to everyone.
Yeah, I never gave up.
I love how you mentioned that. I mean, that you, during your career, you have had like ups and downs, and at the end, you always say that you're lucky. And that's something that, I don't know, I feel like many pilots, especially, I don't know, classmates of mine, they all say like, oh, I think there's just one way to be a captain, you know? And I think that's not true. You know, there are like many ways. Like life can take you to like so many paths that, I don't know, at the end, you have to end up where you need to be. You will end up where you need to be. And I don't know, I'm happy to see that you say that.
I know, yeah, I say I'm very lucky, but I really do believe in the whole, you make your own luck. You know, I'm not completely positive 100% of the day. You know, we all have ups and downs days, but I make the most of when I'm feeling positive, and when I'm feeling a bit negative, I go for a run. I go and do some exercise, do something just to get me out of the rut. Don't get stuck in a rut, right? Right. Yeah, everybody's got the same opportunities, and just make those opportunities happen. Make your luck.
Exactly. Yeah, and you also just mentioned that you began flying on the 80s. So I was wondering, how did this, your desire to fly came through your mind? Like, why did you want it to start in the first place?
As you said, you didn't have the internet. So like, how did you get into aviation?
So I wasn't really interested in aviation until I was exactly 12 years of age. However, my father, who's a builder, had been building houses all his life. When he was 21, he was planning to become a pilot. However, I didn't know this. Before I was born, he was building on a work site. He was hammering in a nail, I'm going to make you squeam, and a 3-inch nail went into his right eye, and that blinded him from his right eye. So because he was blind in one eye, he couldn't get a pilot's license, so he just continued in building, and he was a builder. And I grew up with a dad that was a builder. However, every single birthday, being his eldest son, I've got 2 other brothers, every single birthday, Christmas, I got gifts related to airplanes. There was model airplanes, there was books on airplanes, everything was airplane related, because obviously he still had that interest in aviation, which many people do. And so I had that in the background, but again, I still didn't have a great interest to become a pilot until at the age of 12. And this is interesting for you because you've probably flown on airliners many, many times at your ages, but up until the age of 12, I'd never actually been on an airplane, any airplane. And we went on a family holiday to visit some relatives in Queensland. And as we were boarding the airplane, my father said to one of the flight attendants, "Oh, my son would like to see the cockpit." I'd never mentioned anything, but you know what, dads do with their sons. "Oh, my boy would like to see the cockpit." So he basically pushed me into the cockpit of this Boeing 727, you know, the beautiful 727. And she said, "Yeah, sure." So I went into the cockpit. I was a very timid young 12-year-old boy. And the captain and the co-pilot and engineer those days turned around and said, "Hello, welcome to the cockpit. What's your name?" "Oh, my name's Christopher. Would you like to sit here for takeoff?" And my dad said, "Yes, of course he would." All right. So next thing I knew, I was sat down, strapped into a seat behind the captain, right next to the engineer. And halfway down that runway, my eyes were wide open. And I thought, wow, I didn't even know this was a job. And when we got airborne, the captain turned around to me and he said, "So what do you think of that?" I said, really innocently, I said, "Is this your job?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, do you get paid to fly airplanes?" And he went, "Yeah, I'm a pilot." "Is that a job?" And he said, "Yeah, it's a job. You fly airplanes for a living?" "Yes." "Can I do that?" He said, "Of course you can. Everybody could do it." And that was it. That started it. And I thought, wow, I want to be a pilot. I want to do this. This is so cool. And that was it. That's how I started. So then from there, obviously my parents weren't wealthy. Well, not obviously, my parents weren't wealthy. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But my dad, who was a great inspiration, said to me, "Look, go and get a job. You want to pay for flying lessons, get a job." So I did one paper round in the morning, two paper rounds in the afternoon with my push bike. I then went to the pub in the afternoon and sold newspapers. I worked at the supermarkets on weekend, pushing trolleys and stacking the shelves. And then on school holidays, and I had, you know, my dad and other uncles who were in the building trade. As I got bigger and became strong enough, I used to work on the building sites and earning money there to pay for flying lessons. So that's how I got started.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a great story. Well, but now you're a captain and you're a real experienced captain. So I mean, I'm sure that throughout your career, you've flown with like many captains. So I'm sure you know, and I want to ask you to come up with 5 traits that a good airline captain must have.
Right, Mauricio, last night on the flight, because you sent me these questions, I thought, okay, I'm going to really do this properly. And here's my notes.
Oh, great.
Wow.
I've got these notes because I wanted to give you the right answer, because it's a question that I'm regularly asked, and I'll start off with, I'm regularly asked this question, and it's mainly when I'm training a first officer to become a pilot. And we'll sit there in the cockpit and he's coming up to what we call pre-command assessment. And I look at that pilot and I say to him, okay, take out a piece of paper. This is really interesting for you. Take out a piece of paper and write down the 5 names of the 5 best captains you've ever flown with. And my name better be on there. No, but write down the 5 names of the captains you love flying with. And they write the names down. I said, I don't want to see the names, and not just put their initials, just for you, not for me, it's for the, right? And write down next to each one of those names why you like flying with them, right? Don't write because he's a good pilot, because that's a bad answer, right? Write down personality traits that you like about that person, right? And then, okay, now tell me what they are. Don't tell me the names, but tell me what they are. And they're normally things that come up like good sense of humor, okay? Willing to listen to me, okay? Very knowledgeable and experienced. A good coach, you know, somebody who coaches me, okay? Somebody who, again, listening, communicates with me, and somebody who puts me at ease. So they're all personal traits. It's got nothing to do with being a pilot. You could say airline captain / manager. I'm sure you've all worked in jobs before. What makes a good manager? A manager of a restaurant, a manager of a business, right? What makes a good manager? I'm an airline captain, but a captain is a manager. I manage people. I manage the person that's sitting next to me, and I manage the crew behind me. And the end goal is safety, getting people from point A to point B as safely and as efficiently as possible, and representing the airline that I work for, or the company that I work for. So they're the personality traits. Then I say to these same pilots, and because I like this bit, and then I say to them, okay, now I want you to write down the 5 names or initials of people you dislike flying with, the captains you don't like flying with. So they write the initials down. I say, okay, now write down why you don't like flying with those guys, right? Because we sit in a cockpit for anywhere from 6, 10, 15 hours, you know, next to the same person. And sometimes it could become quite awkward. And again, the answers that come up from that are, he doesn't communicate, right? He's rude, he's selfish, he's this, he's that. So again, they're personality traits. Nobody ever says, oh, he's not a very good pilot, because you cannot become a captain without being a good pilot. You don't get to that level, right? If you're not a very good pilot, you have to have the basic skills. We have 3 sections that when we assess a pilot, we have what we call the team, right? So under the heading of team, we talk about professionalism, leadership and teamwork, and communication. So that's part of the team. We then have what we call the management, and the management's very important. So how do you manage being a good pilot? Well, you need to have very good situational awareness, like be able to look at what's going on around you. You have to have good workload management, like getting the job done, and also getting the job done with your first officer or your crew, and assessing how they're dealing or coping with the work that needs to be done. And also you need to be a good decision maker. So that comes under the heading, situational awareness, workload management, and decision making comes under the heading of management, right? And then, and it's it's not very often mentioned, is the operation of the aircraft, okay? And we talk about using the automatics, manual flying, and knowledge of procedures. Because those 3, the last one, the operation of the aircraft, is what we call the bread and butter. If you can't do those 3, you shouldn't be flying an airplane. If you don't know which button to press, if you don't know how to fly when the buttons don't work, or if you don't know what procedures to carry out, you shouldn't be flying an airplane. So it's not those skills that pilot assess as a good captain. It's the management skills and their professional communication or teamwork skills. So what are the best traits of being a pilot? I would say, if I had to order them, and this is where you've asked there, Genesis, the first one I think is being a good leader. I know it's a big word, being a leader, but not just being a leader/team player, right? So you might be the leader of the team, but you're part of a team, whether it be a sports team or a business, you are a part of a team. And to do that, you need to support and give feedback to your team, okay? You are the leader because possibly you have the most experience or you've been there longest, but you need to lead by example. You need humility and you need empathy to know what it was like when you were that first officer, when you flew with an old guy that looks like me, who was a 19-year-old pilot, but he's now the old guy. He's now the guy with the experience. So when you're the guy with the experience, you need to have that empathy to remember what it was like when you joined an airline, when you had your 1 or 2 stripes, not your 4 stripes. Okay. You need to be able to listen to them. Try and find common ground, right? I'm looking at you now, Genesis. I don't know you, right? But if we were sitting in the cockpit together, I want to know not about how you fly the airplane. I want to know about your family. I want to know about where you've come from. I want to know what you did until you got to where you are today. By knowing about you, you then respect me, you then trust me, and then you're more open to do your job properly. So I think the first thing is leadership and teamwork and supporting the person you're flying with by being the captain of the team, being the leader, and knowing who's on your team is the most important thing.
Right. And being able to listen and learn. I think the willingness to learn is so important in everything. And, being humble enough to listen and just do whatever it takes to be better every day.
Absolutely. Because remember, I'm a senior guy. With the junior people, they are scared to speak up. And it comes from, as children, you don't speak up to adults. So all that's carried through life. You everybody's respectful to the person that's older than them. And that's good. That works in society. But the old guy might make a mistake. And in aviation, mistakes aren't tolerated. So we need to have captains that can listen to the new young member of the crew member to understand that they might have something very worthwhile to say. And most of the time they do. So that's very important. Listening is very important.
Of course. And that's part of being a team, like as you said, I mean, you're the leader, but you're still part of the team, and your teammates might have something to say very important. So absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
You're not a very good leader, and you're a very good bad captain if you're not listening and using the best out of your team.
For sure.
So what's that? That's one trait. Leadership, is that leadership or teamwork? Listening? I don't know. I'm going to get these mixed up.
That's okay. That's okay.
So leadership and communication, I think they're 2 different traits, but communication is very, very important. I've flown as a junior pilot with the captain who does this. That's 10 seconds. That's 10 seconds. That's really awkward. Imagine flying with somebody who just looks out the window.
Of course.
It's awful. And you sit there thinking, what's he thinking? What's he thinking? He doesn't talk to me. He's not interested in me. Have I upset him? So communication is essential. And like I said, I would walk into a crew room, with you, Maurizio, and I haven't met you before. And I said, hi, how are you going? How long have you been here with Virgin? How long have you been flying? Where did you come from? Where did you learn to fly? And I will ask you, and it's like you have to give me your full CV because I want to know who you are. I want to know who I'm flying with.
Right.
And by doing that, you then, as I say, you have respect for me. You think, oh, this guy's actually interested in me. I am interested in you because I want to know who you are.
Right.
It's important for today's flight.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have got to make a lot of friends that way too. So that's very important in the aviation industry since you're always, traveling all around the world.
And we're always meeting new people all the time, and it's essential for safety. Safety is the number one goal, isn't it?
Of course.
Yes.
So, if you don't communicate properly, that's going to affect safety. So to mitigate any sort of safety issues, we need to always communicate, and communication is the most important one. So yeah, so what makes a good captain is being a good leader or a team captain, as like a sports team, and communicating with that team, and how you communicate with that team, and how you gain trust and respect by showing empathy, remembering what it was like for you. Right? Even down to little things like, how'd you get here, Maurizio? Oh, I had to catch a train. Oh, why is that? Oh, my car broke down. Oh, I remember those days having no money. So which train do you come in on? And where you, right, do you want to lift home? I can give you a lift home if you like. Oh, that'd be nice. Boom. We're all part of the same team. We work together.
Of course.
And that's really important.
That is important.
What else have I written here?
Okay.
Professionalism. Okay, professionalism. So professionalism is just a word that we throw around, but you've got to have credibility. Right. So to be professional, you've got to have credibility, which is why I'm sitting here in my captain's uniform rather than a t-shirt, because it's part of looking the right part. And also, I'm very aware that I've said the word Virgin Atlantic. I represent Virgin Atlantic when I'm in this uniform. I represent Virgin Atlantic by speaking to you today. So I want to be credible as an ambassador of Virgin Atlantic Airlines. Right. That's who I want to be.
Of course.
Because, without credibility, I could be anybody. And this is what I was saying a lot on the internet. There's a lot of people out there who say they're pilots, and some of them aren't real pilots, or they're very inexperienced pilots, and they try to make more of what they are. Credibility comes with a self-awareness as well. You need to be self-aware of who you are and what you're portraying. So, and also, if you're working for an airline, remember, it's like I said, you're a company, you're a leader in that company, you're a manager in that company. So you also need to have that credibility. You have to have a lot of commercial awareness about your company and where they're going and what they're doing.
Of course.
So professionalism covers a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else? So I've got leadership, communication, professionalism, managing. I think, did I touch on management? Management skills, the skills of management, because you are managing a team of people, but you're also managing yourself. With flying, we have a thing that we say to people, with pilots in training, when they're looking at a problem that comes up, they're making a decision. We call a mnemonic. You've heard the word mnemonic? There's lots of mnemonics in aviation.
Mnemonics, yeah.
We have a thing called 50 Doda. Sounds funny, right? I'll go through this with you. So okay. I'm a simulator trainer as well. So I sit in the back with my pen and my piece of paper, and I look to see if the pilots are using the 50 Doda mnemonic to solve a problem. So FIP, F-I-P, F, who's flying the airplane? Most essential thing. Something goes wrong in the airplane, who's actually flying it? There's two pilots there, and it's so easy for both of you to start looking down and saying, right, what's the problem? And start pressing buttons and so on. Right, so number one, in any situation, who's flying the airplane, right? And that may be assigned. It might be, okay, Maurizio, can you take control? You have control, all right? Or I'm going to fly the airplane. Maurizio, could you read what the procedure is or get the procedure out? So somebody has to make a decision as who's flying the airplane. F-I-P, let's identify what the problem is. What is that problem? Let's both discuss, communicate to find out what the problem is. And then P, let's make a plan. All right, so I'm going to continue flying the airplane. I want you to look into the problem we've got, and we don't need to keep going in this direction. We need to maybe think about heading over there or diverting there. Then we look at time, and time's a really important one. And most of your people listening here are pilots, so I won't scare anybody by saying, if you're on fire, that determines how much time you've got, okay? If you've got no fire, but you've got 60 tons of fuel, you've got plenty of time. So you need to establish very, very early on, how much time do we have to solve this problem, okay? Do we have to get on the ground now? Or can we go, hang on, let's sit on our hands, as we say in aviation, and let's solve this problem and find the best outcome. And then we work what through a lot of pilots who listening to this will know about is called DODA, right? DODA stands for diagnose the problem. Okay, so diagnose. So we go back to this identifying or diagnosing. What is the actual problem? Right, that engine stopped. Why has it stopped? Maybe it's run out of fuel. Okay, Mauricio, let's check the fuel. Let's see how much we've got. And we will start diagnosing what the problem is. Then, options. What options do we have, right? We could continue flying on one engine, or we could divert somewhere. If we divert into, Keflavik down here, it's snowing, the runway is icy. Do we really want to do that? Or could we look at another option? So we then discuss, again, communicating, we discuss options. And then the two of us or three of us will decide. So DODA, diagnose, options, decide. So decision. Okay, I've decided with consultation with yourself and the information that we have in front of us that we are going to divert into Keflavik, right? And we're going to land there and we're going to be there in so many minutes. And then action, right? Put that plan into action and start doing it. And then the most important thing, and it's in life as well, is R, the last one, DODA, is review, right? On our way to diverting to Keflavik, we think, hang on, do we really want to do this? Or can we do it a better way? Okay, so we always go through a review. So have you had time to think about what we're doing? Are we doing the right thing? Have we? So it's always, you can always review, you can always adjust and what your plan is, and you can always look for a different plan. But we always then go back to DODA, diagnose the problem, what are our options, decide what we're going to do, make an action, act on that, and then review it again. And it's a continuous cycle that we go through as pilots. And all the time in the background of our head, when I'm training new captains, I'm saying, right, number one thing to think about when you're making any decision is it safe? Is it a safe decision? The next one, which sounds, especially living in the US, is it legal, right? Are we making a legal decision? You know, that's why we study the air law, don't we? Air law is something we all learn as pilots. So are we making a safe decision? That's always essential, no matter what you do. But then, is it legal? We have 330 people on board behind this airplane. Are we making a legal decision? We can make a safe decision, but are we making a legal decision as well? Is what we're going to do going to be legal? Are we going to get trouble here, right? And then the third one, is it commercial? Commercial, you know, I just told you, I work for a company and I want to make a decision that's a commercial decision that will help my company. If I divert an airplane to somewhere where they don't have regular flights, how are we going to get those passengers to their destination? If I divert into an airport like Dublin, where they have regular flights, right, we might be able to, before we've even landed, have another airplane ready to take those passengers onto their final destination. So is it safe, is it legal, and is it commercial? Is the 3 points that we make whenever we're making a decision. I'm rambling now, aren't I?
It's great. Yeah. And I think it's very important to be confident about those decisions too.
Absolutely.
That's also
confidence comes from experience.
Sorry?
Confidence comes from experience, and confidence also comes by going back to what I said, having somebody beside you that you can rely on, having somebody beside you that you can speak to and communicate with and say, right, what do you think? Are we making the right decision here?
Of course. Now that we're talking about confidence, I also wanted to ask you, I mean, I just thought about it, and I mean, I wanted to know your opinion about this. I mean, self-confidence is very important as a pilot, because if you lack confidence, you could be you tend to make mistakes, you tend to, I know, get frustrated. But there's also this other side where you're overconfident, and then you can put yourself in dangerous situations and all of this. So how do you think pilots can get like in the middle, you know, like I mean, especially when they're getting experienced pilots tend to sometimes get overconfident, and that's something bad, you know? So how do you think an experienced pilot can manage confidence?
That's an excellent question, Mauricio. That's a very excellent question. Have you heard the expression, there are old pilots, there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots?
No, of course.
That one?
Yeah, I've heard it.
So it's a really difficult one, because when you're young, right, you're confident and you think, I'm gonna be good, I'm gonna be the best pilot there is. And I will tell you now, when I had 500 hours, I thought I was the best pilot in the world. When I had 1,000 hours, I thought I am the best pilot in the world. When I had 2,000 hours, I went, I wasn't that great at 1,000. And when I got to 5,000 hours, I went, oh my God, I can't believe I was actually flying airplanes with only 1,000 hours. So it's like through your life, you've got to be self-aware and assess where you are. And you have different stages in your life when you go from a smaller airplane to a bigger airplane to sitting in the right seat to sitting in the left seat. And if you're not self-aware of where you've come from or where you're going to, I think you could really get in trouble, because the last thing you want is somebody my age and experience being overconfident, because then you get that captain that just sits there and looks out the window because he doesn't want to speak to you because he knows everything. He's the best pilot in the world, right? You need to be self-aware that you can make errors, and we can all make errors, and realize where you've come from and where you are now. Yes, I'm hugely experienced as an airline pilot, but I still make mistakes. And that's why people say, who checks the checker? So every 6 months, I'm still in the simulator with another one of my colleagues checking me, and I'll make mistakes. They won't be big mistakes, but there'll be mistakes, and I will learn as well, right? Because we can all, and that's why aviation is so well regulated. We can all go down the wrong path, right? We can all get, I can't think of the word, traits that we do that we don't realize we're doing. We're all habits, right? And that's why it's good to have regular simulator checks. So somebody can say, you know, when you said that, yes. Why did you say that? Well, I always say that. Yeah, but what should we be saying? Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. And get you back on track so that you go, oh, I'll look that up. And you might go back into the books and say, yeah, I've been saying it wrong. Because again, I've got to be self-aware that as a senior training captain for an airline, I might be saying the wrong thing all the time, but the junior people like yourself might go, maybe he knows something I don't know. And that's where you've got to be careful, being at the other end of the scale, thinking, hang on, the book says this training captain keeps saying that, maybe he's wrong. He probably is wrong. And then there's a tricky thing. How do you bring it to his attention? You go, you're wrong. Or you say, excuse me, Captain, you know how you say this? Is that the proper SOP, the standard operating procedure? And I might, hopefully I'll go, oh, no, let's look it up. I'll look it up with you and I go, oh, do you know what? I've been saying it wrong. I must have been doing that for like the last 6 months. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so back to your question about being overconfident. Be self-aware. Know where you are, where you're planning to go to, and have that confidence to get where you want to go. But at the same time, keep assessing yourself along the way, saying, am I a bit too cocky, or am I a bit too meek, right? Because meekness isn't going to work as well. You need to be a bit confident to get ahead in life. Not pushy, but just confident, and believe in yourself. Believe in yourself is something that you hear in pop songs all around the world, believing in yourself, believing in yourself. But it really is important to believe in yourself, to get up in the morning and go, do you know what? I'm good. I'm good at this. I can do this. Confidence is a hard thing. You know, I have a teenage daughter, 18 years of age. So I know what it's like for girls as well. They're not as confident as men. They don't have that testosterone in them to go, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. Right. But you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to look at yourself in the mirror and go, yeah, I am a really confident person. I can do this. I'm clever. And every time you do something and you pass an exam or you pass some stage of your career or your life, you think, I am actually really good at this, and believe it. Believe it. Tell yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very humble of you to recognize that we all make mistakes and that sometimes you may have things to learn too.
Yeah, the day you stop learning is the day you stop living.
Of course. Of course.
And yeah, since we were talking about the traits, I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give other pilots to develop these traits that we just talked about?
Okay, so I come back to where I started on this. Don't think that being able to fly an airplane well makes you a good pilot. Okay. Being able to fly an airplane, you're not a racing car driver. You're not trying to get around the track the quickest, right? You're trying to get from point A to point B safely. And like I said, making a safe, legal and commercial decision, and also using the DODA and the skills that you have of situational awareness and workload management and decision-making. So all those things, you have to be very self-aware. It comes back to self-awareness. In other words, just going each day at a time, just trying to be a little bit better, and not concentrating on those flying skills, concentrating on personal skills of communication, empathy, humility, and believing in yourself. You know, so look at your personal skills, not your flying skills, right? I still haven't said how good you fly an ILS or how well you know your books. Everybody can do that. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be flying an airplane. They're the basic skills.
Right.
I mean, I was reading a book and they were saying, like, as you said, you know, that like the part of the job that we think is difficult, like, I don't know, flying an ILS, all that thing. I mean, everybody can do that, but the things that are like common sense are not so common, you know, it's not like, it's not common. And it's something I've realized, that people don't really stop and think, okay, this is not common sense. I have to work on this, you know, and they just work on I don't know, being perfect doing the ILS, but they don't work on their personality traits, which is because they think, oh, I mean, I can do that. And of course not, you know.
That personality is so important. You're in a cockpit with another pilot. And it's going to be like that for many, many years. And if you don't get on with the person next to you, that you're unsafe. And if you think you're the best person in the cockpit, you're unsafe.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course.
Never compete. It's not a competition.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Well, thank you
teamwork
very
is
much.
important.
Now I'm gonna ask you a last question. I mean, this is like a fun question. Well, not a fun question, but it's something I always wonder. And when you mentioned that you fly long haul flights, and I mean, you told us that you flew the A340 for a lot of years. So you've been flying long haul for a while now. So how do you manage? And you said that leadership is something important as a trait. How do you manage leadership in a cockpit where there's more than two pilots, more than two captains? You know, is that like a common thing? How do you like divide leadership there?
Okay, so we've been actually recently with COVID-19, we've actually been doing some flights where we're going to Los Angeles with 3 captains. And the reason for that is we were short of first officers, and being a training captain, we weren't doing much training. So we had training captains flying with training captains. And it's very, very easy to work out who's in charge. Is we get into the briefing room, we all say, "G'day, how you going?" And we actually decide. And I mean, I've joked that we do rock, paper, scissors on Instagram, but it really does get down to that. We might flip a coin and say, right, who needs a landing? And so it's normally, we'll just get in there together and we'll say, right, okay, all of us are captains, all of us are training captains, right? We've all got similar experience, similar backgrounds. So who would like to fly today? And one of the guys might say, oh, I've just had 3 weeks leave. I wouldn't mind getting back into it. And you guys can watch me. Great, fantastic. So that we normally make the decision based on who's flown more recently, who needs to fly more recently, who would like to fly. Oh, I haven't flown to Los Angeles for a while. Could I fly it out? Yeah, sure. Or actually, I wouldn't mind flying back because I flew out to Los Angeles the last 3 times. So I wouldn't mind flying it back into London this time. So we'll have a discussion in the briefing room about who's going to fly, who's not going to fly. So in other words, who's going to be pilot flying on the way out, who's going to be pilot flying on the way back, who's going to be pilot monitoring on the way out, who's pilot monitoring on the way back, and who's going to be what we call CM3, crew member 3, who will assist in the middle bit and take the rest when the other pilots need a rest as well, or take the seat. So it's basically just mutual. We'd never walk in and say, well, I'm the most senior pilot in the company, so I'm going to make the decisions. No, we all talk together and decide what's best for us and what's best for the airline.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as you said, it's company, so you have to be professional, and that's one of the
most important thing.
Yeah, and is it normal to give them feedback while they're flying and you're watching or something like that?
Absolutely. Actually, that's a funny question as well. So because I'm a training captain and I'm quite senior in the company, if I am on one of these flights and I'm sitting on the jump seat, the guys in the front could be really nervous with me sitting on the jump seat thinking, well, is he watching everything I'm doing? So to relax them, I'll make a little joke with them or something. You know, so say, oh, is that your best landing? And they'll go, what? I go, is that the best you can do? Right. So make them laugh, make them have a bit of fun, go out for a beer with them later. You know, so yeah, just a relaxed working environment is a safe working environment if it's relaxed to the right level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too much pressure makes people put it under pressure and they make mistakes.
Of course. I mean, as you said, the ultimate goal is safety. So everything adds up, and I don't know, helping your other pilots for sure.
Yeah,
to the safety part of the flight.
And since you're flying so many hours, because those flights can be up to 10 or 12 hours, I'm sure that you want to make it a good
enjoyable, right?
A happy working environment. And that comes from, a lot of us know each other and we've known each other for many years, but we regularly come across a pilot we either haven't flown with for many years or it's a new pilot to the company. And we spend that time in the sky talking to each other. Are you married? Do you have children? Where have you come from? What's your background? What's your family history? You know, we've got hours to talk to each other, and it's amazing how you can get to the other side of the Atlantic and know or have a new friend. And that's the best part of the job.
Of course.
Yeah. That sounds very fun, and thank you for all those answers and your perspective.
I didn't get anywhere through my notes, but at least I had them.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, we also had notes, but I think this conversation turned out great.
Yeah, it's like being in a coffee shop, just chatting, having fun.
You know what? COVID-19 has been really bad in many, many, many ways. The obvious ways that we all know about. But some of the good things about COVID-19 is exactly what we're doing right now. 3 people who knew each other, but 3 people who don't know each other on the other side of the planet being connected through this media to help each other. to influence each other, to inspire each other, to motivate each other. And it works for me as well, right? I love doing this because part of my goal on Instagram when I set up the Captain Chris account was to inspire and motivate young pilots. That's what I started with. COVID-19 came along again, which gave me the opportunity to promote my company and promote aviation worldwide. But the initial goal was just to inspire and motivate young pilots like I was inspired and motivated when I started out.
Of course.
Yeah. And there are so many people that want to get in this journey and they have so many questions and they need advice, they need feedback on their journey. So it's very important to create these platforms for like a kind of mentorship for these people.
Mentorship, good word. Very good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, thank you. I think that was great. And
You're welcome.
sorry.
You're welcome. It's fantastic. I love this. I don't want it to stop, but we've got enough information. It'd be really boring for your video if you put too much in.
Of course not. We could have you for another interview. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm very good at talking about myself, but men are good at that in general, aren't they, Genesis? You know that.
Great. Thank you so much, Captain Chris. There you have it. And don't forget to follow him on Instagram. He's in Instagram as @Captain Chris. And we are on Instagram as @Jus As Pilot. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we look forward to seeing you again on our next interview. Thank you, Captain Chris.
Fantastic. And good luck to all of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.